Hi, my name is Brittany Hudson. I am a master's student at Wycliffe College at the University of Toronto, and I am studying a master's in theological studies and urban community development. When I was 7 years old, I was living in Malton, Ontario, which is a small community located within Mississauga, the city of Mississauga. So I was 7 years old, and my sibling and some of our neighborhood friends, we usually would ride our bikes around our street, which was a big circle. So we just loop it, and around that circle to when you got to the end, there was, or the other side, there's a high school that is located right there. And at the time, the high school was being renovated, and the whole space was being blocked off by a fence to ensure that people couldn't get in. So being little kids, we were fascinated by what was happening, and we decided to go by the fence just to see if we can get a peek of what's going on inside. And we were looking, we dropped our bikes by the front, and we're staring at this school under construction. We were, and to be honest, we were wondering if they left any like lab rats or anything like that in the building. That was our big fascination. We're just being kids, looking around by the fence, and an elderly man noticed us. He lived right in front of the school, and he noticed us, and he called the police. He calls the police, and the police come swinging by. And we had already left the school at this point, and we kept on with our normal business, and we're riding our bikes around the block. And the police officer notices us. We got on a quiet stretch, and he stops his car and he calls for us. And being children, being naive, not knowing your rights, not knowing what police can and cannot do, we engage in this conversation with this police officer, and he asks us where we're from, what we're doing around. This is the middle of the day, mind you. And we respond to all the things that he said. He asked us if we were in the school. We said no. And then he proceeds to show us the guns that he has in the back of his vehicle. And being children, not knowing what to make of it, we watched. And then he left, told us not to go by the school, and we were done. None of us died that day, and we just carried on with our normal business. I often think back to that experience. First, because a police officer had no right to speak to me, and secondly, because he was intimidating us by showing us his gun, or the guns that he had in his vehicle. Moving forward in my life, I moved to Brampton, Ontario, in a neighborhood that was predominantly white, and I stopped seeing the police officers. I went from a place where the police were circling around my neighborhood, constantly harassing us, manhandling us at many times, treating us like thugs and children that didn't know how to behave, to a place where I no longer saw the police. And then when I did see the police, they were just coming after us. I often look back at my situation, and I think, why was I seeing the police more often? Why were they more hostile with people that look like me? It wasn't like the kids, like the black children or the other racialized children weren't smoking weed, or that the white children were not doing the same thing. We were all doing the same thing, but we're all treated differently. Still to this day, in my neighborhood that is predominantly white, I see kids doing things that I know I could never get away with. And I always think about that. And in the realization that my 7-year-old mind realized that the police were not there to protect people like me. They were there to intimidate people like me and keep us in check. Policing it's not made to protect racialized people. The RCMP was only formed to clear land and remove Indigenous people off. Policing was not created to protect racialized people. And that's why I believe that there shouldn't be police in schools. There shouldn't be police at public gatherings to keep the peace, because they're only keeping the peace for a certain group of people. That's why I believe the police should be defunded. And that we should put our funds into services that actually help people, help racialized people, help people that are struggling and that are being impacted by systemic barriers. I often think we had police in our school, but my school in Malton didn't have a music program. We had police in our schools, but no one was actually learning how to do scientific experiments. And when I moved to a new neighborhood, we didn't have police in our schools, and everyone read music. We didn't have police in our schools, but our science gadgets were up to code. We need to defund the police.